This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by promoter Eddie Hearn for the first time in 2024 here in Quebec, Canada. Eddie, firstly, how are you? Happy New Year. Did you have a good one?
Yeah, it was good. I had a couple of weeks off. It was nice and chilled, and gone from the Caribbean to -20 here in Quebec, and a great start to the year. A great fight, one that we believe Callum Smith can win, and excited. 10 years ago we were here in Quebec for Tony Bellew against Adonis Stevenson, and good to see those two head to head. Look in Artur Beterbiev's eyes. He's a great champion, and he's a fantastic fighter. We just believe Callum Smith will win this weekend.
You've obviously always had that belief Callum will come out on top. Before we do touch on that, a little surprised not to see you up on the top stage there.
Bob wasn't happy. Bob couldn't make it, so I wasn't allowed up there either, apparently. I don't know, maybe they didn't want me to say certain things. Been a few things brewing over the last couple of days and weeks. But yeah, if Bob turns up, I'll go up there as well.
So you're going to be up on stage tomorrow?
Maybe, if Bob decides to come. I don't know. I wouldn't leave him on the sidelines if he came to London, but it's a respect thing.
Obviously, we'll touch on certain topics in a short while, but just sticking with this fight, a lot of talk about going into it. It's going to be a bit of a shootout at some point. Callum needs to come out on top, and that. Do you believe that's how this fight unfolds? It becomes a bit of a shootout.
Yeah, I think that you're not going to really go into an Artur Beterbiev fight thinking that you're going to win rounds and outbox him, and he likes to force the pressure. He's got tremendous work rate, and Callum Smith's got to use that to his advantage. We know that he's a great counter puncher. He has great power. I think Callum Smith punches harder with one. He's more of a one-punch knockout artist at 175 than Artur. Artur is a very heavy-handed guy who has a tremendous work rate. Always likes to come and fight, but at the same time, I believe that will suit Callum Smith, and I see him knock him out. As soon as this fight was made, I believe Callum Smith wins this fight by knockout. Appreciate it's a very difficult fight, but yeah, confident that he can do the business.
How big of an upset would this be if?
Not major. No, I mean, he's the outsider. We understand that. He's coming to Quebec City. Artur is the unified world champion, but I wouldn't see it as an upset, really. I think it's a 60-40 fight on paper, but one we're very confident of. We also understand, as I said, that Artur is a great fighter, a great champion. Will be tough to beat. Father Time will catch up with you at some point. And the pressures of the information coming out last 24 hours and the questions that will be asked, it's a lot of pressure to take on, so it's going to be interesting.
Something which I'm going to touch on now. The atypical results come from December 6th of Artur Beterbiev. Just from your understanding, first and foremost, Eddie, can you tell me when you found out what exactly the procedure is, your understanding of the entire situation?
For once, it's not my fighter, it's not my show, and I'm just glad the information's got out there, because this information was made aware to us in the middle of December. It's difficult because it's not our show, it's not our testing, it's not our fighter. Let's make it clear, it's not an adverse finding, but there are raised levels of HGH and testosterone in a test that we want to know more about. And, in the end, the pressure was on to release that information yesterday. It is fight week, but I feel like there needs to be more transparency. It's not really on us to release that information. We're not scientists, but we also read the information, and of course it raises concerns to us. But at the same time, contractually, it's not an adverse finding. So I'd much prefer if it was just one or the other. It's a test that's absolutely fine, or it's an adverse finding. When you read the results of a test that has, levels above the testing limit, we want to know more, and that information hasn't probably has been as forthcoming as we'd like from VADA, because we want to understand more. And when, under their rules, there should be additional testing around this result. There hasn't been, other than the standard testing that there was. So we just want to understand it a little bit more, and I think transparency is good. Disappointed it's taken so long for it to be released, but I think if this was our show, and if it was our fighter, fuck me. Right now there'd be 400 people around me sticking microphones in my face, and maybe that's why certain people haven't turned up today.
I mean, Eddie, unfortunately it's something which we've spoken about a lot in probably the last 18 months or so, but just sticking with it, is it an ongoing investigation? Is it still being looked into? Do you know anything about it on that front?
Contractually, as we know, the fight, it's not an adverse finding, but we just want to know why. Why were there raised levels of HGH and testosterone in that test? And we understand that can happen naturally, and I don't know enough about it, but for our position, when we've got the opponent in the other corner, again, we'd just appreciate a little bit more science from the testers to make us feel a little bit more comfortable. But, you know, there's no accusation towards Artur Beterbiev. If VADA feel like it's not an adverse finding, on we go. But we want to know more.
So that does lead into my next question. Obviously, the test results which came back negative after the December 6th one, they were taken a week and a half, 2 weeks after. Doesn't necessarily account for the cause of how December 6th test became an atypical result.
If you're saying that these substances can occur naturally, and there was a spike in them on that test, but a week later there was no spike, is that, I have no idea. Can that happen? Is that something that just happens naturally? It's up 1 week, down the next week. It's a very grey, cloudy area, of which I just feel like there needs to be more transparency of people saying that this has happened and these are the reasons why it's happened. You can imagine when you receive that piece of paper from VADA and you've got a guy fighting that opponent and you read that, as someone that doesn't probably understand the science, of course, your concerns are monumental. But we just want to be put at ease. That's why, and I don't feel like we've had that.
Was the fight ever in jeopardy, Eddie?
Contractually, no, because again, until it's an adverse finding, contractually there's no reason for us to pull out of the fight. And again, this isn't, to make it clear, you know, an accusation to Artur Beterbiev, it's just the results that we received. Again, those results were made in the middle of December. And also, VADA took, I think it was over a month for the blood results to come back from that test. But don't forget, there was a urine and a blood for those. Both came up with atypical results. And it took a long time. But, you know, all we want is just some knowledge passed to us about why. That's all.
So have you still been speaking with Top Rank about that and with
Really
Beterbiev's team? So
to be honest with you, it's not really top. You know, it's VADA. You know, and I know that Sean O'Toole, who represents Callum Smith, has been dealing with this situation. He's been asking the questions of VADA, and I don't think they've been as forthcoming as they'd like to be, as we'd like it to be. But you know, we just have to deal with the facts that are in front of us, and you know, I think even you would admit that if this was a matchroom show and this was a matchroom fighter, the absolute world will be thrown at him right now. You know, but that's life.
I mean, Eddie, I think plenty of people will know that. I've quizzed you plenty of times over.
Are you going to quiz it?
Oh, well, that's when I get the opportunity. Obviously, Bob isn't here now, so I can't really speak on that note. But
I'm sure opportunity to Artur and the team, you know.
Well, hopefully, if he does, but I don't know, is he left?
He's over there, yeah. I think so.
But Eddie, I'm here with you. Just sticking with the theme of the lightweight division, there. If Callum comes out on top, I've seen Beterbiev-Bivol come out and saying his team said that there's an agreement in place to face Beterbiev, but not Callum. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, obviously when we did the deal in Saudi Arabia with His Excellency, the plan was for Beterbiev-Bivol to fight in the undisputed fight. That fight that they like is Beterbiev against Bivol. Obviously they haven't thought too much about the Callum Smith fight because in their mind, I think they believe Beterbiev will win on Saturday. So from our point of view, with Bivol, he's already signed to fight Artur Beterbiev. He is correct. There isn't a deal in place yet to fight Callum Smith, but that would be quite a natural position if he was to win on Saturday. So if and when he wins on Saturday, we'll be looking to make that undisputed fight with Beterbiev-Bivol.
When would you look to try and get that one done?
Like April time, something like that, April or May.
Moving forward, Eddie, sticking with Saudi, Joshua-Ngannou. Talk to me about that. How did that one come about?
I mean, it was very quick. You know, we had a situation where you had, obviously, the Wilder fight was signed. We were announcing Joshua against Wilder that night in the ring, and Wilder lost. And straight after, the talks began with His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh, to see what other fight we could make in March. And, you know, the conversation was, what is the biggest fight that we could make in boxing, heavyweight boxing, outside of Joshua Wilder, and obviously you've got Usyk Fury, and the answer is Joshua against Ngannou. It is a massive fight. You know, I have to lick my wounds from my previous comments, which was I didn't think he had an absolute chance of winning a round against Tyson Fury. He dropped him, and it was a very close fight. I thought he edged the fight, but regardless, it's a fight that could have gone either way. So he gained the credibility in that fight. It's a fight with a lot of jeopardy. but I believe AJ will win and win in style, and it will lead him to the undisputed clash.
There's a lot of talk about a potential Zhang Zhilei fight, Filip Hrgović obviously with his IBF position. Was Ngannou always a front runner for you?
Yeah, Zhang wasn't really discussed. I mean, Hrgović obviously is a fight we're interested in if it has a world title as well. But as you know, in Saudi, they just want to make the biggest fights possible. And the biggest fight possible was Joshua against Ngannou. So that got made quite quickly. They're shooting the promo this week, the press conferences on Monday, and on we go for another massive event in Saudi in March the something.
The event itself, there's no denying it'll be a huge event, Eddie, and he's going to be a big fight. But does he do much for Anthony in terms of his boxing career?
I mean, depends what does something for you for your boxing career in Joshua's position. The only thing is trying to win the world heavyweight title. That's not available right now, but it will be available perhaps in the summer. So right now, you either don't fight on March the 8th, or you look. I do agree with you in the respect of there's a lot of risk in this fight with very little reward. Obviously the financial reward's there, but in Joshua's position, he just wants the big fights, the fights that excite him. And I think after the performance against Tyson Fury, this was a fight that excited him.
Will he be sticking with Ben Davison for this fight?
Yeah, I think there are discussions now. Camp's going to get underway next week. Obviously, it worked very well last time, and I'll leave that to him and 258 to decide where they're going to base their camp.
I want to get your thoughts on the new IBF rankings. I've seen AJ hasn't been put at number 2. Is that a surprise to you?
Yeah, I mean, people don't know enough about the rules. So with the IBF rules, you can only go into 1 or 2 if you fight an official eliminator. You can't just be put into that position. So Otto Wallin fought an eliminator for number 2 against Gassiev. That's the reason he got into the number 2 spot. Because the Wallin fight wasn't official eliminator, you cannot go in at 2 under their rules. So he's gone in at 3, which is the highest position that he could have gone in outside of being in an eliminator, which he wasn't.
Was there a reason why that wasn't made as an official eliminator?
No, because I just think it wasn't really, the plan was to fight Wilder. We'd already had that agreement moving forward. We'd signed just before the fight. So, our plans were just to fight Deontay Wilder. He's the highest ranked fighter right now in the IBF, outside of Filip Hrgović. So if the belt became vacant today, it would be Hrgović against Joshua. So he has to beat Ngannou. If he doesn't beat Ngannou, he won't get a shot at the IBF world title.
Just to ask Eddie, on that night, obviously we saw Joseph Parker outbox Deontay Wilder quite comfortably throughout. What was it like seeing that fight fall through with a Joshua Wilder fight? Because it would have been a mega fight.
Yeah, disappointing. You still get people today saying, yeah, Eddie Hearn's happy because he never wanted that fight anyway. It was the biggest fight in boxing. Obviously, financially, it was huge for all of us. And I've always believed that AJ's a big favourite in that fight. And you saw, I'm not saying that was the best Deontay Wilder, but you saw why I might think that. So I was really disappointed. And of course, so was Saudi because that fight was signed and agreed. But we just got to regroup and find the next biggest fight, which was Ngannou. So everyone moved very quickly. I was pleased. I said to Joseph Parker at the press conference after the fight, I was like, if anyone was going to balls this up for us, I'm glad it was you. I'm over the moon for him. He's a lovely bloke. And he won the fight so easy. Won every round, really.
Fury-Usyk, just whilst I've got it, I just want to get your thoughts on it as we draw ever closer. What do you think goes down in that undisputed bout?
I mean, look, I want. You imagine if AJ knocks out Ngannou and Fury beats Usyk. AJ Fury is there on a plate. It is the biggest fight in the history of the sport. So I want Tyson Fury to win. I actually love Usyk and I respect him so much, but for AJ, I would like Tyson Fury to win that fight. I would like him to become undisputed. And then if that IBF title becomes available, maybe we fight Hrgović in the summer. And then I know they've got a 2-fight deal as well, but let's be honest, there'll be so much pressure to make that fight.
Seems to be, Eddie, we know the representatives out in Saudi are very organised and work with things very quickly. Is there a plan in place that they've spoken about, right, if Fury-Usyk happens twice, Joshua versus the winner of it or versus Fury?
That hasn't been discussed, but obviously, say that Fury-Usyk is not a great fight, but Fury wins and then Joshua knocks out Ngannou. The pressure to make that fight will be huge. So, it's going to be interesting.
Also, just get your thoughts on Haney-Garcia not happening now, or talks maybe coming to a halt. What's your take on Ryan Garcia saying doesn't want it?
I mean, he DM'd me to say, just to let you know, this is the fight I want. Me against Devin Haney. And then Oscar got onto me, Eric Gomez got onto me, and I was really pleasantly surprised at the ambition of Ryan Garcia because he's a very, very difficult fight. And, I really took my hat off to him. The decision to try and fight Rolly Romero is a smart one. It's a much easier fight for less money, but I think it's a fight he wins, and I don't think he beats Devin Haney. So with brain over ambition and legacy, it was the right decision. But I just, when he messaged me, I thought, wow, fair play to this kid. He's a guy, he's a real one that chases greatness. I don't think the advice is bad to fight Rolly Romero, but it's not the fight we and the public really want.
Where'd you go with Devin now?
Oh, he's got a mandatory. There's other fights. He could move to 147, but he's one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Final one, 27th, Jaime Munguia, John Ryder. Yeah. How does John go about upsetting the odds?
It's a great fight. Munguia is a tremendous fighter. He's an all-action fighter. So is John. The confidence that he would have gained in the Canelo Alvarez fight, I think, will really help him. It is a 50-50 fight. John's away from home. I think he's going to win the fight, but it's a real good fight to kickstart January. And you've got that, and then you've got Conor Benn the next week in Vegas. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks in America.
Yeah, and had a chance to do this in a while, so last chance, a new chance, new year, some motivation for the people.
Motivation a bit early for that, isn't it? But listen, yeah, exactly. But I don't like that. I don't like it's a new year, so we change to do this. We just stay consistent. We keep working as hard as we can. We do the right things. Success is coming. So have a great 2024, and we'll see you every week for the rest of the year.